And we got one of the classics, Home Alone. Scrooge from 1970s, good. And I can tell you mine, it's Christmas Story, classic. Have to watch it every single time, multiple times during the holiday season. Wife absolutely hates it. I actually have one of the leg lamps that they have in the movies, if you're familiar with the movie. I have one of those leg lamps, and every Christmas, every time around Christmas, it has to go up. It has to be displayed. Okay, Jonathan. So Christmas Story, the classic. And as a kid, I had a Red Ryder BB gun too. So, and that's not why I wear glasses. I didn't shoot my eye out. So thank you guys for joining. And we'll give it a few more minutes. Ah, see, there you go. Someone else said Die Hard. Polar Express. Okay, so still got Nightmare Before Christmas. Always good. Trading Places, that's different. A Year Without Santa Claus. Actually, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, it's this like claymation movie from like the 70s that used to play all the time on like ABC Family while I was like growing up, and I absolutely love it. So if you all like claymation, SB, The Nightmare Before Christmas is kind of claymation. I would recommend.
Yeah, I think I'm familiar with that one, the one that you're talking about.
So for those who just joined, just a quick little icebreaker in the chat. What is your favorite Christmas movie or holiday movie? So we'll give it just one more minute and then we'll go ahead and get started. And as people start filtering in, I still have Alec and I have Tanisha that are going to be watching and making sure that everyone gets invited who wants to join. But for the early people, the people jumped on very punctually, we appreciate it. Yes, Alec. It's a Wonderful Life. Yes, It's a Wonderful Life is always a classic too. Okay. And as we're still going through, we have a few people connecting, but let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, thank you guys for joining our workshop, the CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act CEQA workshop. This is number 3 out of 3 and our final workshop. Hopefully you guys all attended the workshops, the first 2 workshops. Today's workshop is going to be specifically focused on community outreach, on things to do, best practices, what to look out for, and some of our experiences as community outreach. So one of the important parts of getting this information for CEQA is having a combined voice. And having a combined voice really increases your ability to be heard. Oftentimes, there's an imbalance between government officials, between builders, from developers, as opposed to a community member. So there's an inequality there that's naturally born in. They're the people with the money. They're the people that have the access to the politicians, to the decision makers. So how do we equal the field? We equal the field by making sure that we join together as a coalition, as a group, and speak as one large voice. I think that gives credence to what we say, and it gives more power to what we say, and really helps amplify our voice. So as we're going through this, I'm going to introduce the panelists. And again, one more time, my name's Hector Olivares, and I am the program manager for the Environmental Justice Program here at Catholic Charities, Diocese of Stockton. And next we have Jonathan Pruitt. Jonathan Pruitt, go ahead.
Hey everyone, Jonathan Pruitt. I previously worked at Catholic Charities Environmental Justice Program as the program coordinator, and I'm presenting myself as a resident, but I am currently working as the program manager at CEQA.
So Jonathan just had left us maybe, what, it's been a month and a half, maybe 2 months?
Yep.
But he's done a lot of great work in this community. He's still deeply involved. He still deeply cares about what we do here in the community. So it was a natural that we would ask him to come help co-host this. Next on the list, we have Connor. And Connor, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Connor Everett. I have a kind of fatal flaw of putting together coalitions. So I helped start the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water. I'm currently the facilitator of the Environmental Water Caucus statewide, Southern California Watershed Alliance, and the desal response group working on challenges to ocean desalination. And I've been involved, it kind of makes me an old man of water, but I had two wonderful woman mentors that I worked with and drove around for many years. And that's been my policy is go out to where the work is rather than expect it to come to me. I'm in Southern California, and I spend a lot of time in Stockton and up and down this long state we have, and often working on CEQA issues. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk with you all.
Thank you. And then next we have Esperanza, better known as Espy. Espy, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Esperanza Vielma, and I serve as the Executive Director for the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water. And Connor Everett, yes, is our founder, one of our founders. And so I also serve as the co-founder for the Cafe Coop, which is a co-op that we started in Stockton. And following in Connor's footsteps, we also have a coalition. EJCW is our nonprofit organization, but another coalition that we co-founded along with Green the Church, which is the Coalition for Environmental Equity and Economics. And that's also a statewide coalition. And there we're working on trying to save rooftop solar at the moment. And then with EJCW, we work on the human right to water, along with some of you on AB 617, which is within the realms of air quality, and then also within the context of clean energy. So again, thank you, and pass it on to the next person. Yes,
thank you. Thank you, Espy. And then last but definitely not least is Mary Elizabeth. Mary Elizabeth, can you go ahead and introduce yourself too?
Yes, thank you. Mary Elizabeth, I'm a fourth generation Stocktonian, and I am a volunteer. I moved away from Stockton for quite some time, and I moved back about 8 years ago now, and 6 years ago now. And I've been working on water. I do groundwater work. I write lots of letters. I do jobs that need to be done. And I'm not at this place in my life, not worried if I stand up and sputter over my words. I need to convey what's in my heart and in my head as best as I can. And so I have lots of projects that I would love to help some other folks that might be interested in getting involved to take care of some of the problems that we have in Stockton and San Joaquin County, and just in general in our world. I'm also with the Delta Sierra group. That's one of my volunteer jobs.
Well, thank you guys all. And so as we see that we have a group of panelists from the community that have some pretty good experience as far as sharing or organizing communities to work together to help improve our local air and water quality, and some that do work statewide. So before we start, I definitely want to make sure that we go over just some little quick housekeeping as we normally do. And I'm just going to go over some of the Zoom controls. So Alec, can you go ahead and start the Zoom control screen, please? Thank you. And then next slide. Okay, so for our audience, please remain on mute unless your name comes up in the speaking queue. And most of us already know you've been 2 or 3 years through Zoom. Please mute, unmute the button that's on the left of the screen. Next. Click on the chat icon near the center of the screen. You can choose to chat to all attendees or have one-on-one private chats. Note the private chats are also archived. So as we save this, it's also archived. Next. To be added to the speaking queue, please click on reactions and raise hand. Follow the same process to lower your hand once you have spoken. And of course, you're welcome to, as we're speaking, if you want to react with a clapping hand, with a thumbs up, with a smiley face, a heart, thumbs down if you want to, you're all welcome to do that too. Next one. And then click the camera icon at the bottom left of your screen to toggle your video on and off if you choose to talk while you're on camera. It's not necessary. It would be appreciated, but it's not necessary. Some like to keep their cameras off. And if you choose to keep your camera off, your decision definitely will be respected. And thank you. So as we start, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our first speaker, and that would be Connor. So Connor, can you go ahead and start?
Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I understand in your previous sessions, you've already talked about the background for CEQA, and our focus is really about public outreach. I'm just going to talk about a little bit of my direct experience through the years working on these issues. I mentioned a little bit of my background. I've also been elected to a water agency. I've worked for municipal water agencies, state, federal level, and even an engineering firm, although it was a good engineering firm. And I mentioned that because these are all elements of the type of outreach you're going to have to get to the decision makers. The CEQA process, which isn't perfect, but it's the best we've got, relies on reports paid for by the developers with a lead agency. Lead agency may have some interest, obviously, maybe a government agency, but it can be other, city and others as well. The process is slow. You start with a notice of preparation. We're going through a couple of those right away, where they ask for the general information that you are concerned at. That's where you can throw anything on the wall and see what might stick. Strategically, you may not want to tell them everything you're interested in if you think that there are issues that will not be revealed. And the outcome from CEQA, really the best you can do, if you challenge with a CEQA lawsuit, is give yourself more time and also get another bite at the CEQA apple. So if they have failed to comply with CEQA for whatever reasons you can come up with, then they have to go back and do the process again. I've been involved in a few of those as well. But once the CEQA is actually approved by the lead agency, they call it certified, in a public vote after public hearings, then the idea is that you've lost this process and the development can start. I want to say that often isn't true at all. I've worked for way too many years, over 30, on this issue of ocean desalination, which might sound like a good idea if you didn't know that it uses a ton of energy, relies on old dinosaur power plants intake that kill sea life in the intake and discharge kind of a toxic brine that sits on the ocean floor and kills things again, and is the most expensive source of water. So in the last year, we've had some big victories. A huge plant called Poseidon, a private company that built the only large plant in the Western Hemisphere that's created the most expensive water ever in the San Diego area, most expensive in the country. We got another chance when they came to Orange County, and there was a lot more resistance. We had a lot of resources, and the city of Huntington Beach just decertified their EIR on CEQA. And CEQA was just one of the many steps in a long, long battle. By the time this issue really came in front of the final decision makers, or the Coastal Commission, that CEQA was really out of date. It was about 10 years old at least. So it's an interesting process. It reveals at best what the environmental considerations are. At worst, it says these are the environmental considerations, the environmental justice considerations. If there is a federal part of it, it links to that as well, with consistency with an environmental impact statement and NEPA. But at worst, they go ahead and build anyway, despite those problems, and then you're left with having a lawsuit. So what you try to build with the public participation when you want to make as broad and diverse as possible is put things on the record. You really have to go into the process with a long-range plan. What if we lose this process? Are we going to sue? What's our alternative? Is it going to be in the court of public opinion? Are we going to use this as an opportunity to bring out the issues that may have been overlooked or ignored? Sometimes agencies just want to do what they call a neg dec, or negative declaration, and just move on and not have to go through this whole process. And the process can take a long time. So I'm sure you've talked a little bit about, they do a draft EIR and they get all the comments. They can take as long as they want to respond to those comments. And then the response can often group together large numbers of comments with a single, often inadequate statement. So you have to be prepared. You have to have some legal background or people that will support that. There's excellent planning documents. I've just put up a very simple flow chart for CEQA. But it must be good because so many in the building industry, so many in the development and power plant development, water development, others that want to move their projects through have been trying to get rid of CEQA since it started. So it's an excellent opportunity as an organizational tool. It's an excellent opportunity, though, to educate people what you can do and really what the expectations are, what you might not be able to do with this. But it is an excellent way to organize the reasons and the environmental justice concerns that have usually been totally overlooked on why you shouldn't have this project and what the impacts are, both in the local community and in some cases like power plants on the coast or the desal plants that were going to perpetuate those power plants. All the pollution of running them 24/7 would fall on the inland communities. With the inversion, the air pollution would land on them. Often they'd get no benefits, but their bills would be going up anyway. So there are a lot of pieces to the process, and I can't think of a better tool than trying to organize, and without getting too caught up in the complexity of the process, is to let people know why you're doing this, how you need their input, and more importantly, how important their voices are. Because if you can get 30, 40, 50 or more people to show up and oppose the people that may be there, paid to be there, from the high-priced attorneys to the construction workers, sometimes the building trades that'll be there. Sometimes we end up talking to them and they say, well, we're just there because we're paid to be here for the day. We're just supposed to stand up in support of this project. But then when we start talking with them, they realize there's other issues. But if you have local community people who may not speak English, who may not understand the process, but are concerned about their community, it's a very powerful tool. And I know there's a lot of frustration with it. People like it on both sides of the issue, would talk about CEQA reform, but that often means streamlining and limiting the public input in the process. That's been used already to build some baseball fields, football fields, other things that needed to be exempt from CEQA. Nothing should be exempt, really. The process can be expensive and onerous, but I think it's worked out well for communities that have challenged it. The law has improved it, and now it includes climate change as well, which is vital to communities in the front line that are being impacted. I think the other most important thing is to point out what the alternatives are. To be very clear that this project may turn short-term construction jobs, but it may eliminate wetlands or other crucial habitat.
Right.
It may eliminate opportunities to subsistence fish or have long-term impacts on air quality, noise, traffic, all the issues that are listed in the CEQA checklist. And let people understand that those are their concerns. The developers will come and go and they'll build it and they'll be gone, but people will be left with these impacts. If they build a huge development, is there enough schools? Is there enough water? Is there enough roads? Who's going to pay for all those things in the long term? The economics really don't play into this, but we're beginning to see that we're making an important link to the impact on environmental justice communities and climate change together. And that's Connor, the real impact. Yeah, go ahead.
And Connor, I don't mean to cut you off, but just a question as far as you mentioned, the importance of the CEQA process, but how do you go about getting, you mentioned 20 to 30 to 50 people, how do you go about getting those people together? What is your process and what are some of the things that you've done that you found that were helpful?
Sure. So we started organizing meetings around this as informational meetings. We always provide food. We work with local nonprofits. We build it from the bottom up, and we listen to what people's concerns are while we explain the process and how we can help each other with that. So, it takes canvassing, it takes going to churches, temples, it takes going to community meetings, it could a variety of ways, going to speak at the lead agency, whether it's a city or a water district or a regulatory agency, and getting up and speaking in public and meeting other people or having people hear you. And then I think finally working with the media to bring these issues up and use that to build support in opposition to the project. But in the end, it really takes old-fashioned organizing of calling, outreaching, providing both information and resources so people can understand the process. The challenge is a lot of these meetings, we'd have our meetings at night and weekends, but the actual meetings are often in the middle of the day. So you're asking people to take time off. Some of these meetings can take a long, long time. You may get cut back based on the number of people to speak for a very short period of time. So you have to teach people and make sure they understand clearly what the talking points are and what can you say in perhaps as little as 1 minute.
So thank you, Connor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open it up, see if anybody has any questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand, and then Tanisha will call on you and let you go ahead and ask your question. Okay, so but one question that I definitely have, Connor, is that when you speak at public events, say at city council meetings, at that time, do you go ahead and say, hey, I'm putting together a group. If you guys want to, work with me, if you want to get more information, do you then say you can meet me after the meeting, or here's my card?
So I think I'd work the room rather than say that when I'm directing comments directly to the city council or decision makers. But I think, in any group, there are key activists that are aware. And then how do you build on that? And how do you make sure it's their issue, just not your issue? Because historically, especially environmental groups, I work with both environmental justice and environmental groups will come in and say, we need your help on this issue rather than the other way around. So I think, I don't think we get most of our, we might meet a few people at a meeting like a city council meeting or a water district meeting, but I think we meet more people through the community itself. And if there's no questions, I'm actually going to thank you for this opportunity. I've had COVID for the last 16 days and I just tested negative today. So I kind of wind down. I start very early in the morning, so I kind of wind down at the end of the day, but I'd be happy to follow up. I'll leave my email in the chat. And if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask me directly, and I'd be happy to send out some other resources after this. And people often ask me, and I'll just include this quickly, the pictures that are over my shoulder, that's my parents' artwork. My father's painting is there. If you can Google my name and you'll get some information about him as somewhat infamous artist. And the rest is my mother who passed away. That's her self-portrait, my step-grandmother and others on the wall behind me. So there's always a great opportunity to use art and outreach from silk screen and posters and have musicians at your event and make it a cultural interest as well as, this essentially scientific process we put ourselves in.
Right. And thank you, Connor. Connor, are you going to be staying on, or that I understand that you're still recovering?
I'll stay on as long as I can, but
okay.
But I'm also willing to take questions, and I'll put my contact information in the chart in the chat right now. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and thank you. And he's going to add his information in the chat, and we want you to reach out to him. And again, under no obligation, Connor, if you need to leave, I know understanding COVID takes a while to get over. I had it myself, and it did a doozy on me. And again, that's just a reminder for all of us that it's still out there. It's definitely still out there. So as we were talking about the importance of CEQA and what what it entails and how it works with not only current projects, but also future projects. This next portion was put together by Jonathan and myself, and just talking about some of the pitfalls, some of the things to look out for, and definitely being honest about some of the mistakes and some of the things that we weren't able to capture and to kind of that passed without us getting too involved in. And unfortunately, it's the community members that sometimes bear the burden of that. A lot of times with our organizations, we consider ourselves the front lines, the ones that really make sure that we have our ear to, what's going on, and, being the ones that actually filter through all this information and sign up and put our names on the list to get the updates, to make sure that, as city councils and as county governments do their business, that we're able to make sure that we follow along. So for things like this that don't slip through the cracks. So our next portion, me and Jonathan are going to work on it, and it's a cautionary tale about what can happen, right? So as Connor was mentioning, things like the general plan is once about every 10 years, and that's where the roadmap is for the city or the county's future growth, meaning where they're going to put the roads in, where they're going to include their heavy truck routes, where they're going to put light industrial housing, what type of housing, whether it be low density, high density parks, how are they going to address noise, traffic, air pollution, waters issues. So very important, down basic, if you want to get involved, definitely get involved in whatever your city's doing, especially for the general plan, because you're going to be living with that for at least the minimum the next 10 years and the consequences of that. So going back to what we were talking about, one of the issues we came up with was the city here, most of us are from the Central Valley, so the city here in Lathrop and some of our shortcomings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and Alec, can you go ahead if you have it? Can you share? Actually, you know what? I can do it myself. Okay, and give me a second. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And just as some of our shortfalls when we're not able to really keep up with what goes on and what really happens. So we're talking about City of Lathrop's general plan. And City of Lathrop had released their draft EAR in May of 2002. And then the environmental impact report was adopted in 2022. And again, being honest with this, we worked with the city of Stockton, we're working with the city of Manteca in Stanislaus County. We've been working with the city of Modesto. We've been working with the county with their general plans. And it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but sometimes, you know, things fall through the cracks, and it's unfortunate, and it's true. So one of the things that fell through the cracks was the City of Lathrop's general plan. And I'm going to share my next slide to show you what we're talking about. And as we're looking at this map right here, our primary concern about City of Lathrop's general plan that they voted on is that if we can see where my cursor's at right here, this gray area was once farmland, right? And this right here road is called Del Reyes Road. And right across from the road, you have high school, and you also have residents. So with City of Lathrop's general plan, what they decide to do is to redesignate this whole entire area. And if you take a look at it, is a pretty large portion. Offhand, I don't remember the number of acres, but a humongous portion that they redesignated for light industrial or limited industrial. And again, here in the Valley, what do you think limited industrial is? Real simple. It's warehousing, right? So this area, and I'll show you more here on this map of what we were looking at. And this is Del Reyes Road. And we see, here's the high school right here, right across from the road. And then you can see the streets built up here. This is an older Google Street View, but this area has currently been built up. So this is all filled in pretty much with houses. But from this road to this road right here, oh, my cursor is not working. This road right here is now going to be zoned light industrial, nothing but warehousing. And we see some of the issues that come up with them having warehousing there directly across from the school and residents, which are called, you know, sensitive receptors, where they are specifically affected by pollution, by heavy road, diesel emission, by PM 2.5. And one of the issues that came up is that we were not able to really catch this and really engage residents and let them know, either the school or the residents here, hey, this is what's going to be going on in your neighborhood. This is what the City of Lathrop is about to do. This is what the changes they're going to enact. And this is long-term. Once they enact these changes and they build these warehouses, that's it. They're there. They're done. So looking back at all these residents that lived here, now these people here not only feel the effects of the pollution, but also have to deal with their major way in and out of this area is now going to be congested with heavy truck traffic, right? Not only with the employees that go in to work these warehouses, but the heavy diesel trucks that drive up and down the road to go in and out of the warehouses. How is that going to affect their property values, their quality of life? Well, you can all imagine what that's going to work and how that's going to affect their values and their quality of life. So not only that, but also with the students here, what they're looking to do is that they're looking to improve this road right here to have heavy diesel trucks go in and out of the warehouse complex. But from there, they're going to go either left or they're going to go up north. Left, which would be take a right, which is going south, or take a left, go north to try to get onto I-5. More than likely, they're going to come here to get onto I-5 and either go north and south on I-5 and down wherever their final destination is. And we're taking a look at the traffic here. We're looking at the high school along with commuter traffic in the morning and afternoons to students to get to and from school. But also you have people that walk to school. You still have a lot of students that actually walk to school. Now these students are going to have to deal with this truck traffic, right? It's already congested. It's already has been having some vehicle on pedestrian accidents. Now that's something that's going to be even more dangerous. And if we take a look at some of the public comments that were made, and I'll show you this next list of public commenters. This is where all the people that have made public comments to this specific draft EIR for the city of Lathrop. And we're taking a look at people, and if you can see residents, unfortunately, this is definitely something we don't want to see, where we only have one resident that actually made a comment. And, you know, we take that to heart that we had a shortcoming here where we couldn't get more residents involved. We couldn't get more residents to actually, you know, participate in the draft EIR process, in the public comment process that let their voices heard. So for us, we see this as an enormous negative that unfortunately, you almost feel like, and I think Jonathan can agree to this, we almost feel like we let the community down where we weren't on this. And, you know, we didn't give them their opportunity to really understand what's going on and to, you know, make their voices heard. And then, unfortunately for this draft EIR, what they mentioned is that every single warehouse that they're going to build is going to conduct its own individual environmental assessment as its own building, but not including the entire complex as a whole. So that specific building may have lower emissions, but when you combine that with all the other warehouses that go into that complex, you know, the emission standards is going to be way different, right? And definitely something that we should have been able to catch and let residents know about, that this right here is insufficient to follow up with CEQA. But the biggest thing going back is that really only having one resident make a public comment is really not something that is best practices. It's really something that us as community leaders that we can improve on. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. I'll pass it over to Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks. I will have to be very quick on mine, but I just let you guys know this isn't going to be a negative, this is a positive. So Glenda and folks who were from the Manteca AIM group, before it was actually AIM, we would just call ourselves an ad hoc committee group. And this is a case study in regards to a project called Centerpoint South Project and the Intermodal Way Project. Here is a strategy map that y'all can copy and you guys will get the recording, but this is how I did it. And this is very effective. Now you can tailor this if you want, but this is exactly how I did it. And this isn't contingent based off of where you are at in the CEQA process. As you know, with Catholic Charities, we were so at capacity. A lot of the times we were doing a lot of these projects reactively to we had to come in maybe like 5 months before it gets to city council. How about this being 2 months? This was a 2-month plan. And what we did was we identified issues and all that sort of stuff. And towards the very end, we made sure that we really developed a skills assessment with everyone. I think that's the most important thing is as you're identifying the issues is making sure that you guys come as a group to identify what skills you're good at and keeping those skills and roles throughout the whole process. And making sure there is that specific person who is going to be having those additional analysis behind the scenes, as well as making sure you have backup plans as to who's going to be scheduling the city council meetings as well as staff meetings if everyone is not able to attend them. Always make sure you understand the worst case scenarios and best case scenarios. I think if we didn't have the anticipation for the best case scenarios, we pretty much would not be prepared for we really wouldn't be prepared at all. And we had to be on our toes to sort of provide an additional sort of like an alternative plan if something was to go down. This is how we would go about it, and it did. So we also developed a petition and an outreach plan. This was 2 months in advance, like I said, but that, I mean, 2 months in advance is what I recommend to do for that. We didn't. We did it within like, let's say 4 weeks in advance. Host a town hall. Hosting a town hall and also bring in that town hall, providing the petition is very effective. I'm just going to speed through this and show you what the problem was. It was in regards to a warehousing project right next to a Del Webb community, which was 55 and older. We didn't want this airport way to be used as a truck. We wanted trucks to go around the backside, called an intermodal way. Here's the problem. Intermodal way was not fully developed. I apologize for ASL. I just realized intermodal way was not fully developed. And so there was a development agreement on these projects being passed before an intermodal way being developed. And so we, as a group, said, we don't want any trucks on airport way anymore. We want them on this side and to go upwards here and here, never to go past community ever again. And so we developed our goals. We developed as a group, what is our outcome that we want and what is our goals? And we came up with 3 goals. We had meetings with staff and council members. Here we have a meeting with City Council Member Singh, who's now the mayor of Manteca, but we had a meeting with him in person. I mean, this is during COVID, but we made sure people were vaccinated and stuff. And then we spoke with city council or city staff. Here we have, what's his name? Chris Reyes, who is the development director for City of Manteca, and he provided us guidance and updates as to what's going on in the project, what's going on behind the scenes with the developer, and what agreements are they talking about here. Develop a campaign name. I came in, I was a person who was handling the social media. I developed a logo, this logo I developed myself. Concerned Citizens for Airport Way Corridor. Have that sort of campaign name so that people understand exactly what it entails. And so when you come into the city council meetings, people know who you are. And it was very effective. Develop an outreach campaign, flyers. I was a little iffy about using red, but I just used red anyway. Probably not use red in the future. But it provides guidance as to what we were asking for. We developed a petition. In this petition, it lists exactly, here are the steps and here are the sort of the asks that we have. And then the next page, of course, we ask for signatures. We hosted a town hall and community meeting. In this one, we had over 100 people from Del Webb. It was very well attended. I handled the recordings and the audio for the meeting. And the rest of the committee handled talking to folks because they were trusted members of their own community. And then I also posted all of this information and this recording on YouTube for people to check out. Oh, nope. And the results, what it came out of, over 1,200 signatures on petition. City staff added a certificate of occupancy, which means that intermodal way can only be, has to be developed, or the certificate of occupancy, which means the official certificate that allows them to pretty much by the next day they can start operations, will be given if and only if intermodal way is fully developed. And this we did in a timeline of less than 2 months.
Thank you, Jonathan. So at that time, you started the group, and can you explain to us as far as the AIM group and how that works with this petition?
So AIM was developed right after when groups realized how fast we worked together and how well we came on on utilizing everyone's roles. So some people were teachers. They were good at paraphrasing, or were good at reading over documents, making sure our comments were correct and they had the right language and all that sort of thing. Others were good at meeting with city council members or scheduling meetings with city council members. Or others were good at designing buttons. Debbie, she's an artist and she's very good at designing buttons. And so we had developed specific buttons for all this work. And so because we came together and we saw success into it, AIM came to be that, hey, we have something here that is very well done. Let's use this as motivation for future projects. It's sort of like the watchdog of future development, and see what it takes us. And it's still going, still running. We're still consistent. I believe it's every 2 Mondays of every month. So yeah.
Right, and we still have some AIM participants, members that are here participating in our workshop, correct?
Correct, Glenda, and let's see who else. Glenda, I think, is the only one. Glenda has a lot of background in EJ. She used to live in Bay Area in West Oakland. Glenda, don't forget, I remember you, so don't worry. She has history. She's lived it. And so she provided good context on the storytelling. She was very, the first time I met her, she scared me, because she came at the city council members talking about environmental justice and the idea of the attorney general. And I said, she's good. We need to bring her into space. And she provided lots of good experience to this work. And so it is helpful also to for sure to have those who have experience, but for those who don't have experience, it's not hard. It does take time.
Right, and thank you, Jonathan. We're gonna go on, and I appreciate you're coming back and participating in this, and definitely enjoyed your slides. Good job on the slides. So we're gonna move on, and we're gonna go ahead and pass the mic, so to speak, over to Espy, and Espy is gonna talk to us about her topic.
Hello, good evening. And again, thank you for inviting us to participate. And basically, I just wanted to go back to what Connor was saying, and the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water. And then I myself have been involved in, many participation for the public on CEQA. And so that being said, I think I want to just clarify some things that might make it easier for folks. For us specifically, for EJCW, the participation of the environmental justice community is that which is most vital. So therefore, and that's who we work for. And so that is our main goal and objective as we obtain the public, quote unquote, participation. It is, for us, it is environmental justice communities. And so that is our historical context. So I want to make sure that as I'm speaking, that's what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about the environmental justice communities and how it is that we involve the communities in the participation. Because we're a statewide organization, we've done this throughout the state of California. But like I said, it's a little bit as to what Connor was speaking to, because he's been very involved in the process. Like you said, the padrino del agua, so he has a lot of experience. But when we talk about stakeholders, besides our environmental justice community members, we're talking about the actual community-based organizations as well, both English, non-English speaking community members. But then also we've brought in many cases as stakeholders, small business owners or other agencies and cities. But again, with us, it's always going back to their representation or interconnectivity to the environmental justice communities that they either serve or work with. And how we inform them is in all of those formal and informal manners. With our community members, we meet with them at the locations they're at. So it could be at crowd canvassing events, so if it's churches or schools or different events that they might have in the community, and we ask them to speak at those various events, that they're already laid out so that we could just come in and inform them about the issue. And always at those events, we have food. So that's one of the things that, that we bring to the table. And then we do like for the actual organizations themselves is, email, phone calls, and a lot of follow-up. One of the things that Jonathan put out there as far as doing social media campaign, that's another component to reach our community members and our other community-based organizations also through the media campaign. But you can also add to that door-to-door canvassing. It just depends on if you have capacity and funding for that. We usually have a lot of capacity for that, but not necessarily the funding for it. We have a lot of involved community members on a statewide level in all of these areas. And so the coalition meetings are really a key point also, because there's a lot of different coalitions. Like Connor spoke of, he was involved in a lot of coalitions. So as you're working with the community members and the different community-based organizations, CBOs, they're involved in other coalitions. So then they therefore know who you are and what you're doing, and the strategy therefore is to then get invited to present to those other coalitions. An example would be, we were working on the different water issues in Southern California. So then like Connor, as one of our founders, was a part of Green LA. And so Green LA is like this big coalition of members throughout the greater Los Angeles County area involved with primarily water. So there is a way to go about that in terms of adding to other coalitions. And then always, again, going back to what is the ask? What are you asking them for? The action. So then some people may be able to write in their comments. Some people, of course, you want to make an impact. So you want to let them know, once you've gone through this process of inviting and educating and including the community members in the process, the action then in terms of writing the letters, it's going to be impactful. Delivering those letters in a public arena is impactful. Also, to have the members themselves speak and do the public participation, regardless of the language barrier. And so then you have to then hold whomever it is, if it's the agency you're working with, to make the comments on CEQA, then you have to make sure that that they know these community members might not be English speaking. And so you're going to have them there present, and you're going to be helping them in the entire process to take place in this action. But once you like inform the community of what's taking place, like there's basically like no stopping them, because we, like I said, work with these statewide groups that aren't necessarily a part of a specific organization, like the Compton Moms, and we have a group Central Valley area too. And they're like, a lot of them are Spanish speaking, but they're not like, a formed like group, they're community groups. And then the same goes true, for our local community. So it takes a lot of work and participation in these various arenas in order to get yourself known and trusted by the community members, that all you're doing at this point is helping them to become more informed citizens, so they can take action for themselves in these public arena and spaces. And then in that education process, the first component is like learning all of this world of acronyms, starting with CEQA and everything else. There's so many acronyms that people have to learn. And so when doing the comments, you have written comments, in person, phone, and then also you can do different strategies, like have a mini rally as the people are moving forward and making comments. You can do it so that they're, you can have the press there, and you can have them, making the public comment. If it's depending on what's taking place, if it's an agency that has like so many folks, you just like can jam up the whole session by having different people there, and you're recording this, and you can have and you can use it for live streaming, or you can use it for different like snippets on social media now. but you can have the written comment taking place, and you can involve people of all ages. That's the other thing. Like, don't constrain yourself by involving people of a certain age group. Of course, going back to the comments made earlier, the only problem is that usually they'll have these meetings during the day. So that makes it difficult. But then you have to look like who can participate during the day besides those folks that are getting paid. So sometimes it's going to be, you know, folks that are retired, or it could be students. So look at the demographic that's available in the community that can attend during the day. And so the main thing is to build your base, if you don't have one already, in terms of that strong outreach component. But if that's not what you're doing, then work with someone who already has a base, you know, like Catholic Charities or like us or other organizations that have a base with these community members. And especially if it's affecting them, like I said, moving forward, for them to be able to speak for themselves after they've been educated on the topic. And then we've had then successful campaigns statewide as a result. But we're really in the community. We're doing all of those things, door to door, crowd canvassing, participating in different coalition meetings. And so we're very present and respectful in all those spaces. And that's how I think we've been successful and continue to be successful in that outreach component, whether it's for CEQA or for public participation at any level, both local level and statewide level, because we have those relationships that we've built at those various local entities. And so that's how that's like a basic overview. I don't have a PowerPoint for that. I'll have to hit up Jonathan next time, because it was real nice. Like, kind of put together all of some of our photos and what have you that we had in the past. But that's basically what we have done, and it's really it sounds easy, right? But I think it's just a little bit more difficult once you like put it into practice, because it's a lot of time commitment. But if it's something that you're passionate about, it's something that can be done, and the people are the ones who make the movement, and they're the ones who make the changes.
Right. And thank you, SB. Thank you for that. And just real quick, and we are going to have a 5-minute break. And at our break, just to make sure that you guys get up, time to stretch, get some water, maybe get a quick bite to eat. But we will be returning at 6:05, and we still have we'll have some time for questions and answers. So if you still have questions for SB, we can get back to that towards the end of our presentation. So right now it's 6:01. We will return at 6:06. So go ahead and give yourself a chance to get a drink of water, maybe a cup of tea, something to keep you warm, cozy, and we'll be back at 6:06. Thanks. All right. So when you guys are ready, if you can just give me just turn your cameras on real quick and we'll know that we're ready. It is 6:06. I know some people are still trying to get back online and I definitely appreciate it. And again, we know it's a long day. We know, December's always busy. And for us, we're finishing out just absolutely swamped. So we do appreciate you guys making the time to go out and participate in this workshop. Okay, so as we start to filter back, our next person that we are going to have speak is Mary Elizabeth, and Mary Elizabeth is going to actually have us go into a couple of breakout rooms. So I am going to go ahead and hand it over to Mary Elizabeth, and the floor is all yours.
Mary, you're muted.
It's going back and forth. Yeah, it's going back and forth. Okay, so let me put this here. So I don't know. It's always down here and there's a lot of screens here. Let's see if I can get rid of that. All right, there we go. Okay, all right, so that's a problem when you minimize. So campaigns, complaints, and community information requests. So I was asked to talk about power mapping, and I'm not really much of a power mapper, but I am a worker. So first of all, I thought, okay, what is a campaign? So we've heard a lot about getting elected into office. Another potential campaign was becoming appointed to an advisory board. So the city of Stockton, San Joaquin County, they have various advisory boards, and there's a application process and support letters that can help with that appointment. Another campaign is raising money for an important common cause. So, for example, if folks were interested in having that outreach that SB was talking about, to have people on the road, it takes money. And so there are some people that are really super good at this. And I would say Barbara with Restore the Delta is very good at that. And so what I'm going to talk about today is strategically developing a set of actions that will achieve a common goal. So oftentimes I work on projects that come up quick and, and they need a quick response, and there's no time for that. But I have a few that I hope that we might be able to join in on. So there's some vocabulary that's used in these campaigns. So the constituents, so those would be those folks that would directly benefit from a campaign win. For example, the students over at Lathrop High would definitely benefit if truck traffic was controlled there. Allies, those are groups or people that support your goals. Opponents, those are groups or people who oppose your goals. So you have to expect that you're going to have some opponents. And then this term here, target. So, who are you going to be addressing your strategic campaign towards? And that would be people like city council members, those that have the ability to make a decision to afford the goal that you are interested in achieving. So how to identify these community partners. So we've talked about some informal groups. SB talked about some informal groups. We have in Stockton some informal groups. We have friends of the Victory Park Pool that initiated a very strong campaign, and there's going to be a pool going in after 18 years at Victory Park. There's a Midtown group that has been advocating with Caltrans to get the traffic on Pershing slowed. And so there's opportunities for anyone to get involved. And then you have your activist groups like Catholic Charities, Sierra Club, any type of group that generally, does some activism. These are, those that we're most familiar with. But I've come into a group, where we're working with some churches, and Faith in the Valley is a very strong coalition of faiths. There's also the interfaith groups that I actually met Jan through when we were doing some work on the Port of Stockton, wanting to do some deeper dredging all the way up. Then we have, the mayor, city council. Those people are really important to form relationships with, so that they know you, that when you call, they'll take your call. And if you ask for an appointment, that they'll give you one. So the Chamber of Commerce was also in the material that Tanisha set me on to read, was another potential ally. Sometimes we think of the business community as always one-sided, but there may be opportunities where some joint goals can be achieved. And, one thing, it's important to have a diverse set of goals, because not everyone is going to be aligned. So when you're developing the strategic campaign, so you've got the campaign, and so that's all of the strategies that you've thought of in your groups together to achieve the goal. And then the goal is really something that you want to keep out there. So oftentimes the goals that I'm working on are very short term. It's either going to happen or it's not going to happen. But we have an occasion here in San Joaquin County right now to be working on some longer term goals. And then the strategies, those are the actions that you're going to be taking. And SB did and Connor did a wonderful job with talking about, and Jonathan and Hector as well, some of the strategies that you use as you're developing this campaign. And I got loud and clear, food is something very important, and particularly if you're trying to get people to come out after work, when that's normally a mealtime. And so then you have your tactics, and those are the actions that you're going to use to implement. So that would be the social media, interacting with the press, and then ultimately, how can you develop your power? Because that's going to be, how you achieve the goal. Okay, so how is a campaign different from a mobilizing action? And so I've seen that, sometimes we want to, get folks out there, right quick, and that could be good for a short time, but, for a longer term campaign, you want to make sure that you're having varied actions, and that you're really being strategic and thinking through, what's going to get the biggest bang for, the time buck, because, it really comes down to time. And so over and over, you heard the term capacity. And so that's a term used for the ability to have time and money and all of the resources necessary to do the action. While you may really want to, you might not be able to. So strategic planning does take time for campaign development, and it takes people that are willing to spend that time. Whereas mobilizing actions can be, more centrally located, with blasts out, and, doesn't require a lot of time. So the message that I got in the literature that I was asked to look through and read is that oftentimes these mobilizing actions might not result in the sustained effort that you want to happen. And sometimes, and I have seen this as well, sometimes it's possible that the face of the campaign may not be the one that you want to be fostering. So, for example, if there's a lot of antagonism, in a mobilizing action, that may lead people to close their mind, and put up some defensive measures that are going to require more time to break down so that they're able to see your point of view, the point of view that you are campaigning towards. So something, and I appreciate that Jonathan and Hector, when they were giving their presentation on Lathrop, kind of talked about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So that's something that you want to be considering as a plan is being developed. So the groups need to gather, and, take a hard look at themselves, what are their strengths and weaknesses while you're brainstorming and thinking about what are some external threats and opportunities that you may encounter along the way. And so one recent campaign that I've been involved with is the San Joaquin Policy Work Group. And we've been meeting to update and strategize to influence the development of Stockton tobacco retail licensing ordinance. So let me just move this up here. So never mind here. I'll take a look over here. So the problem with the Zoom, is it covers up things. Okay, so I have here the tobacco campaign analysis. So the process and partners. So the campaign started to achieve the goals. So there's actually two groups that we're working and are still working on this. One is really involved with the flavored tobacco. And then the other, is about the overconcentration of smoke shops in Stockton. So I'm a high school teacher, and we have a horrible problem with vaping. And when you drive around Stockton, you can know what neighborhood you're in because you can look at the frequency of smoke shops. So in the poorer parts of town, you have smoke shops all over the place. You go in the richer, wealthier parts of town, and you're not going to find any smoke shops. So the strategies that were developed for this goal here to reduce the overconcentration and to reduce underage smoking was to go through the City Council Environmental and Legislative Committee. So that was started back in December of 2021. So here we are, December 2022. So following that effort, there was identification of some groups that are interested in reducing underage tobacco use and the sale of flavored tobacco. And so as a whole, we began meeting in April 2022. And a ordinance came forward. The ordinance had a number of problems with regard to the definitions. And so we were actually happy that the City Council sent this back in November, just last month, back to the Environmental Legislative Committee. And these are some of the groups that have worked on this project. So always an important part, and you heard Jonathan and Hector do it, was to take an honest look at what are the strengths, weaknesses, what were some of the opportunities, and what threats may still remain. So the strength for that campaign was that all the groups were well aligned to support the goal. Many of those groups are funded by the tobacco tax, and so they have the capacity to meet together. A weakness was that we were not able to impress on staff, and I can't impress upon you the importance of forming relationships, not only with the legislatures, those that have voting power, but those that are supporting them and that are actually doing the work. So we had some turnover related to leave issues. And so the importance of continuing with the flavor ban, even after the November election, was lacking, as well as the necessity to regulate every tobacco retailer, not just those with 50% or more floor space. So that was the definition problem. And we had some partners that had to pull out support because of that definition. So the opportunities was a few of our members were able to get meetings with the decision makers in advance to convey the concerns. And it was through that we were able to get a continuance and not have adopted a very weak and ordinance that would not affect the to the degree that is necessary for our community. And then still we have not seen yet the regulated community come out in an organized manner. And so we'll have a group meeting on this Thursday at 4 o'clock, and then we'll continue to advocate at the Environmental and Legislative Committee meetings, and they meet the third Wednesday. So if smoke shop overconcentration is something that you're interested in, there's definitely openings for folks that would like to participate in that problem. So another problem here that I see, because I work over on the east side, is that there's always a need for residents to communicate to the city because our city responds to complaints. And so again, if you look around in, Midtown, downtown, South Stockton, East Stockton, you're going to find a lot of instances where you have graffiti or vacant open buildings. And the only way that there can be a change is if a complaint is made, because that's what the city responds to. And so those folks in, the better parts of town, in terms of money wise, not heart or thinking, but with more wealth, they are very well versed at communicating their desires to the city, and the city responds. So I'd like to see more of us be doing that as well. And I just like to say, this is like my personal success. If you go by the old Stockton Theater, for months and months and months and months, it was like this. And it was a lot of work, constantly sending pictures to everyone and everywhere. And it's nicely boarded up, and we have our sidewalk back on the Miracle Mile there. So the best way, and this is what I understand we're going to have a little breakout time for, is that everyone be able to either make an Ask Stockton, or those that are in Manteca, or Tracy, Jonathan is going to help with that. And by having an Ask Stockton account, you can keep track of your complaints. You can keep track of your requests for services. Maybe that's a better term than complaint, a request for services. And so this is what it looks like. I've got some links there for instructions that we'll be able to go through, or you can, call. But I encourage you, when you see, you know, it doesn't take more than 10 or 15 minutes, but it really makes a difference in the neighborhood if more folks are requesting services, because like I said, some parts of our communities get more services than others, which is not right. And so another thing that is really important, if you hear something that you wonder, like, wow, what is that? How did that come to be? You can put in a public information request. And I have done this, and I am so thankful. It's just in the last year that it was a helpful staffer from the Department of Tax and Fee Administration that gave me the official language. And so this is the language that you have to use. And the agency, that the governmental agency that is receiving that has 10 days to respond. And if they need more time, they can ask for 14 days. And I put a link in here, and you'll get this presentation where it lists those exceptions. So there's some confidential information, but there's a lot that is not provided to the public generally, but is available. And so this is what it looks like after you have submitted that. So I had, this was on my to-do list to find out, you know, what exactly the police department spent their grant money on. And so I have submitted that, and am looking forward to finding out that information within the next couple of days. And then this is my contact information. I am a volunteer. I work full-time. I teach chemistry at Franklin High School, and also evenings at the School for Adults. During the night sessions, I teach math and science to folks that are working on getting their GED or the high school component, or high school graduation diploma. And so these are some of the campaigns that I'm involved with. So we have again, the tobacco retail ordinance, which, you know, I mean, if you know what I'm talking about, you know, there's a need for folks to stand up. Sustainable warehouse development. So this is a longer term project that we're working on. We write a lot of letters, and I'm going to show you a couple. I believe that I have 2 minutes left here, so I want to give you some work that is being done. Also, the city has some plastic regulations that business education has not gone out, nor are complaints able to be processed. So that needs to get started, because, you know, we have a horrible plastic pollution, trash in our communities. And then alcohol licensing operation standards. So if you have a liquor store in your area where you've got loitering or, you know, other activities, graffiti that, you know, are a nuisance for the community, there is a process for that. And I continue to advocate for the city to update their 2014 climate action plan. So that was done, and right in the bankruptcy time, it was done as a condition of litigation that the Sierra Club put forth. And so I just want to make sure that that we get it updated and implemented, and together everyone accomplishes more. So that is something that I truly believe. I just like to show you one project here. Let me stop sharing for a moment. And then I wanted to just show you about the South Stockton Commerce Center. That is a huge, let's see, here we go. Okay, so right when I submitted the DEI, the draft environmental impact report for the Mariposa project, there was at the same time the South Commerce. And so the South Commerce is even bigger. This is 10 million square feet of warehousing. Just as Jonathan said, they want to do individual EIRs instead of a complete EIR. So they want to piecemeal the project. And I submitted these comments back in last year. And the final has not come out. And I would love, if there was someone that, were interested in learning more about environmental impact reports to, work through this project. And until a final environmental impact report is issued, draft comments can be obtained. Also, we just submitted comments on a warehousing project. It's only for about 500,000 square feet, but they didn't propose any mitigation. And so this is 10,000 miles daily that they estimate truck traffic is going to occur, and planning on using a refrigerated warehousing. So we've asked for, there was some problems in regard to the modeling, and so we've asked for some assistance with CARB to, try to understand how this gasoline light duty vehicle modeling will account for the diesel trucks. And then one last project that we've recently worked on and submitted some comments are regard to the Mossdale Y. And so this is an area here that is very flood prone, would be great for some nature area, and was called aside for in some other environmental documents to be land mitigation. And so the city of Lathrop had proposed to submit those, and I see there is no date on this, but this unfortunately was a few months ago. So these are the partners that signed on for that.
Mary Elizabeth,
Yes.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
I'm done.
Karen,
Thank you.
Karen has a question. She has her hand up, and I'm gonna let Karen go ahead and ask her question.
Yeah, I'm done. I know.
This is okay.
So
Karen, go
I
ahead.
have a question in particular to that, Mary Elizabeth. It talks about how many miles per day. And in some of the EIRs, they talk about trucks per day or trips per day. And so it's really hard when they're talking about miles per day to figure out how many trips, how much traffic that's going to create. So could you say, look, we don't want to hear miles per day. We want to know the traffic that's going to be on that road per day. And 10,000 miles doesn't really let you know what the truck traffic's going to be in that area. That's just, there could be long haulers coming out of there. You don't know.
That's correct. So there was a number of problems with that EIR. The planning commission, they have the authority to accept a mitigated negative declaration if it goes to the next step for what's called discretionary. Then that would have to go to the city council. And so what we're trying to do is get research so that we are assured that we have some data and basis for doing the appeal to the city council. So that's the next process. So if a planning commission approves something, sometimes it naturally goes to the city council, which was what happened for the Mariposa, and then you have one last time to stop it. And so that's what we did back in, I guess it was April. We stopped the Mariposa project, and so then we were able to negotiate some additional mitigation. And so that's pretty much the process. So we're hoping that we can get some information from CARB to take to the city as a basis for requiring a full EIR, where they would have to do that. Thank you, Karen. Good catch.
And again, great question. Thank you for that. So following up, coming towards the end of our workshop, you know, always the question is, you know, what's next? What's the next step? This is the number 3 of our workshop, right? And what do we do after this? Right? That's also always the follow-up question. What do we do after this? How do we keep people involved? So what I would like to do is to make sure that we're able to really capture everyone who wants to get involved in some of our campaigns, and really make sure that, you know, if you want to be involved, whether it's warehousing, whether it's water, whether it's air, whether it's, you know, heavy truck routes, you know, any kind of native exposure, whether it can be pesticide use, land use, land, that we get you involved, we keep you involved, and really get you into, you know, some of the work, some of the line of work. As we mentioned earlier, you know, we're involved in this. For a lot of us, it's our job, but it's also our passion. But we definitely understand that, you know, having community members, people actually live in those neighborhoods, people that can share their stories, their own personal stories, is really impactful. And it really can help mitigate some of the other messages that city council or decision makers get from big money, whether it be developers, whether it be people who have interest, even sometimes, you know, unions that are looking at the short-term union jobs, but not the long-term, you know, quality of life effects on the people that live in that area. So what I would definitely like to do is making sure that if you want to get involved, please drop your email in the chat. And then what we can do is we can reach out to you individually, someone from the Catholic Charities team, and then we can talk to you about what we want to do. I'll give it Alec to make sure, Alec, the emails are captured. And, you know, whether it be a phone call, whether it be through email, or whether we can even set up a Zoom call and see what you're interested in. What are some of your issues in your neighborhood that you would like to get involved in? We have a lot of different groups that are involved in a whole lot of different things. But it is so important, so powerful when we have members of the community that are there and speaking their truth and letting the powers be know that, you know, it's not okay with them or what they want to do without their input, without their buy-in. So Alec, what he's going to be doing, he is going to be capturing it in the chat as far as the people that that want to be followed up with. And I have a message here from SB. We send out comprehensive lists of all our campaigns. I definitely can do that to get everything together. And I'll follow up with SB and Mary Elizabeth and Connor too, and Jonathan. And then the campaigns that you guys are involved in and close with us here at Catholic Charities, and then talk to the people that want to sign up, and we can send them out to get them involved into campaigns. So before we wrap up, we still have a couple more minutes for question and answers. See if there's any more questions that we have. I know for SB, I apologize, we didn't get a chance to really get into some of your questions before we had our break. So here's your chance. If you had any questions for SB, go ahead and ask your questions. And SB, can you give us just a recap again on some of the campaigns that you're involved in? Oh, Mary Elizabeth, go ahead.
Okay, so I had a question, you know, about the press. So I know that like, the capital city radio, they do, short, Rich Ibarra, continues to, report on Stockton that I hear over the radio. And, our Stockton record, kind of doesn't do much local anymore. Then, there's alternate media that sometimes is extremely biased. And so I'm wondering, like, how do you screen your press contacts?
Well, for us, that is one of the issues for locally in Stockton, like you said. We just did this rally that was 10 cities, and it was to save rooftop solar. And out of all the 10 cities, so imagine they hired a consulting firm to do this for the whole state. And the only one that didn't have like media presence was Stockton. So, and then before that, when they had rallies that was like a tour type of rally, they didn't include Stockton as one of the locations because they thought, one, people, coming, and then, but the main thing was press. So that is an issue at the local level because of the fact that the press, like you said, it doesn't have that presence. So they were literally going to Santa Cruz instead of Stockton. So to your point, Mary Elizabeth, that's one of the issues. So what I was trying to do and work with, because they already had a firm that like was doing this on a statewide level, is to try to engage with folks, from the Sacramento that covers Stockton for English, and the same thing for Spanish. What we also found out when we were doing the whole event and all of the organizing with the stakeholders for the integrated regional water management is that we had to do this. So just to give you an idea of like the complexity on that issue with the press, is that in order for us they wanted to do an ad through like Spanish media. And so it was through Entravision that used to be in California, and then they had to go to corporate, and then corporate had to approve it. And this is for like this little media spot. It wasn't like huge or anything, right? And it was to do like the whole thing with the stakeholder with Irwin and for the greater San Joaquin. By the time they got all that approval done, it was already done and over with. Like we already had the stakeholders. So just to give you an idea of like that component and that whole issue that's going on right now with, so I think it's like for our region, there's an issue because people will go to that's why Fresno, Bakersfield, they're getting that attention because we do not have like that local media. So maybe that's one of the things that collectively, with Catholic Charities and Sierra Club, we can kind of push for that in terms of like getting that attention and getting that structure back set in place with media, because that is one of the issues that's happening right now with local media. And so therefore a campaign like that's statewide, they weren't looking to do it in Stockton. I pushed for us to have it in Stockton, and they were happy with our outcome. We had like 75 people, pouring down rain on Thursday, and we were at Nena's on B Street, to basically amplify the message that small businesses were going to get slashed, over 70% in their credits. And so that part was great, but there was no media there. So, but yeah, thanks. That's a very good point, and we need to work on that.
Thank you, Espy. And then I see that Karen has her hand, and then after that, Michelle. Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if we started working at getting the community organized and say had outreach. What we don't have is people with the expertise to explain or to comprehend what these EIRs are. So I live in Tracy, for instance, and there's these EIRs coming out, and we don't have the knowledge or the ability to read through one and to come up with what a problem is. So for instance, we have these warehouses, Costco, coming in, and we were so very lucky to have Sierra Club spend some money on an attorney to write a letter to the DEIR. And when I read that, I was just shocked that I was like, there's no way that even if we got the community together, they would have the ability to be able to read one of these and know what to say. So I think that's the issue, is we need somebody to kind of say, you know, these are the things that are going on, because a lot of things he said, I'm seeing in all of them where they're writing vague EIRs. They don't know what's going to go in the building. They don't care. They're just building like crazy, these empty buildings. They don't even have them rented. And so they're trying to tell us that they are ready to do an EIR. Well, how can you even be ready when you don't even know what the manufacturing or businesses, or how much trucks are going to be needed to support whatever business rents it? And so, you know, that's a real issue. How do we address the fact that they're pushing these EIRs through before they've even got a business and know what the environmental issues are? You know, you can't talk about the how many, you know, they're guesstimating, oh, we're going to have this many miles traveled, but if you don't have someone already going in those buildings, that's really a issue for CEQA, because CEQA is saying that people have to have the right to know all that. So, I mean, how do we tackle this if we can't even understand the EIRs to make the tackle without an attorney? And we certainly don't all have the money for an attorney. So that's my question. You want us to write letters and get involved, but how do we get involved when we don't have the expertise to do that? And that's all I have.
So who wants to? Jonathan,
Yeah,
go ahead.
no, I think the answer would be having to have an MOU from a big entity like the Attorney General that develops sort of like a standard for warehousing development, and then pushing from the other cities to follow suit. Because I'm going to tell you, Tracy is bigger than Stockton in terms of land mass for warehousing. But it's also because Tracy is a lot younger than Stockton. And so they utilized the 205 as a space for warehousing, whereas Stockton unfortunately doesn't have any room on its freeways, given the fact that a lot of them are in the flood zones. So I think it would take one of the cities to push on an MOU that establishes a standard, and then sharing it out to the other cities to follow suit with it. The city of Stockton could be the one to do it first. When that will happen, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's going to take Stockton to do it, and the conversations are happening behind the scenes.
All right, that's good to know.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to Michelle. Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for holding these workshops. These are totally awesome and very informative. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. I am Michelle Rivera. I am from the California Indian Environmental Alliance. We are a nonprofit that works with a lot of tribes in the Bay Area and North Coast as well. And I also wanted just to basically share information with you all as well. There's currently a Delta Conveyance EIR that's out right now. And this is basically kind of a, I guess like a project that's kind of created by Department of the Water Resources. And it's like it's going to negatively impact tribal cultural resources. So I kind of just wanted to take the opportunity to just share this information with you all, and to kind of hopefully share this information with any others that can potentially you know, comment, and to also kind of oppose this. I also provided a link to the DEIR for your convenience. But thank you again for having this. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot today.
So Michelle, one quick question. Is your organization going to submit public comments?
Yes, so we're currently working on our own comment. It is due on December 16th, so that I think there's like about a week and a half. We're kind of halfway through. We're working with another organization to kind of cross-reference all the issues that are pointed out in the EIR. And also just kind of calling in other specialists just to kind of give us a brief like information about that project as well.
So, and then is it Restore the Delta that you're working with, or is it a different organization?
I'm actually not sure. This is an organization that we've previously worked with when I wasn't here presently. So I actually don't know. So I mean, if you all want, I can share my contact information with you all and also send this information out to you.
Yes,
Is
please.
this the what's referred to also as the Delta Tunnel Project?
Yes, I think previously it was also called Water Fix, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, this is the Delta tunnels, and definitely most
It
of
was
us have
called,
very
like, a
strong.
lot of things.
Yeah, there's
We have very strong opinions about the Delta tunnels, and a lot of them were pretty negative about the Delta tunnels.
yeah, definitely a lot of consequences coming from that project. So hopefully, you know, we can put this on other people's radars as well.
Right, and we definitely, I can speak for here at Catholic Charities, but we definitely would be an ally of yours to, if you need another group to help sign on, any kind of assistance with that, or, you know, even to get the word out, we definitely can work with you too.
Yes, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. And then Mary Elizabeth, did you have your hand up again? You're on mute.
Yep, just to follow up, thank you so much, Michelle. And there is, in addition to written comments, they're going to be accepting verbal comments. They've got a setup in Hood, I believe, this week. And so, you know, even if you just wanted to show up and maybe SB, you could find the information about that meeting to put in the chat where they're accepting public comments. It's not far from Stockton. But that's a really big issue. And, you know, we have to thank many groups. California Salmon has also worked really hard on that project. And so I wanted just to say something about the ordinance. So there's an agreement between the Department of Justice and the City of Stockton and the Sierra Club that the City of Stockton will be developing an ordinance for consideration. You know, there's no requirement that they adopt it, but that ordinance should be available for consideration by December of next year. Thank you.
And thank you for that, Mary Elizabeth. So we're running close to 7 o'clock, a little bit over the time that we initially thought we were going to go through. So at this time, I'm going to give you one last chance if there are any more questions or comments. And if you haven't had a chance to drop your contact information in the chat, go ahead and do so. And with that, I would definitely like to thank the panelists that really made this possible for this workshop. We really appreciate your insight and the work that you do. And then especially those from the community that took their time out from their evening to join this. You know, like I mentioned, it's so important to have community members involved in this work. It's almost impossible for one organization, even a coalition of organizations, to do this all alone. And having those community members that are boots on the ground that really can take ownership of it and really give us direction on how you want your neighborhoods to look like and what you want in your neighborhoods is so important for us. So that way it's from the ground up. We're not telling you what you should have in your neighborhoods, but you're telling us how we can help you out. And I think that as an organization, that's what we all strive to really work with and really accomplish. So as for that, this is the end of our workshop number 3 for the CEQA. And I will bid you guys all a good night. And what I see in the chat is one last question. If you had missed the first 2 workshops, they have been recorded. So we will go ahead and send out those recordings of the previous 2 workshops. A lot of good information there too. Other than that, thank you all. Have a great night. And, you know, just keep fighting the fight and get yourself involved. We thank you and we appreciate it. Thanks, Mary
Thank
Elizabeth.
you.
Jonathan, SV.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody. Have a
guys.
good night.
Bye, y'all.
Good night.